Hello and welcome to the Final Straight podcast. Here with me, Ben.
And Stonda. And today we're looking at the story of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Wait till the end to hear what the best radio of the weekend was.
So, lap 1, turn 1, lights went out. Everyone expected Leclerc to send it on Verstappen. What did you think of the race start?
Well, I mean, he could have done more. He could have been more daring, But I feel like, was there any point in trying to overtake Verstappen into the first corner? I mean, he would have gotten past anyway. Like 5 laps later, Leclerc would have fried his tires. I don't know.
Yeah, I think everyone expected him just to send it just for the sake of it. Like in Bahrain, he did not send it again, but on the other hand, you then saw Perez, how he just flew past Leclerc, and you were just thinking, does it really make sense?
Yeah, I mean, and risking, sending it too hard, and Verstappen is known for being pretty defensive and, not being, not leaving a lot of space. So I feel like that Charles just thought that, there's no point. And Verstappen covered him off pretty well as well, so there wasn't really a chance either, I feel like.
Yeah, I think nobody had a chance against the Red Bull this weekend. I think it was a dominant car once again.
Yeah, no, I mean, Ferrari were doing pretty well again. I mean, another podium, and looks like they're pretty clear of the rest of the, top 4 teams behind Red Bull. But yeah, Leclerc was still like 12 seconds, 11 seconds behind Perez at the end. Part of that might have been because...
he got the fastest lap.
Yeah.
He got the fastest lap, so that was a big one, I think, for the Ferrari.
Yeah, definitely. It showed that the tire degradation definitely improved. I mean, sure, the tire deg isn't very high on Jeddah as is, but still, like, I feel like the Ferrari of early 2023 would have really struggled way more to keep the pace. And I mean, it showed that they probably had something more in store. Like Leclerc was saving the tires, so he did the fastest lap at the end. But Red Bull was probably doing the same thing. We can't really tell how fast they really are, over long runs until Max is actually challenged by somebody.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, we then had another person, a new face in the Ferrari.
That's true. Ollie
and
Behrman.
He did a stellar job.
Yeah.
He did a stellar job. And I think, as you said, like, the tire degradation just improved quite a bit because even Ollie Behrman, right? He had no experience in F1 in terms of racing. He started on softs, which was I think that was a pretty good move by Ferrari, considering the safety car came out and everything. But he pitted on, I think it was like lap 8.
Yeah, very soon.
Same as everyone, right? Yeah. In the safety car window. And he pitted for hard, and he just brought it home. He never got caught by Norris and Hamilton on new softs, so...
They were...
Fair play.
And, it looked like they were going to catch up. I mean, but he was only like 0.3 a lap slower by the end, which wasn't enough for Norris and Hamilton to catch him. And, I mean, they were also fighting each other at the same time, but it definitely did help. And, I mean, going from P11 to P7 as a first-time Formula 1 driver, going from F2 to FP3 right away... It's crazy, he did really well for himself.
It's amazing. I think he never drove Jeddah before as well. I think not even in the F2 cars. So it was like literally his first time in Jeddah. And I think his father's face pretty much summarized the feelings that they had.
Definitely. So, and he almost got into Q3. He was only like 36 thousandths behind Hamilton. How crazy would that be? I mean, that would have been a story. Out qualified by a reserve driver in the Ferrari, Hamilton.
Yeah, that would be this, seat of a smooth operator, but the smoothest operation of his life, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Ferrari is looking really, really strong. Like 2 podiums in a row. I think apart from Bahrain's problems with the brakes, they were doing like incredibly well. And I've heard also that in race 4, so in 2 races time, they're expecting pretty significant upgrades.
Yeah. No, from what I've seen, they have a whole new car in the wind tunnel that looks very aggressive. Probably still not enough to catch Red Bull, but well, could help make the gap a little smaller.
Yeah, I mean, Red Bull expects upgrades too, I think, in Imola.
Imola, yeah. Which is scary, but...
It is very scary. Yep. One thing that happened at the start as well was Lando Norris and his jump start, or should I say, not a jump start. So I thought that was pretty interesting because normally, like, you would see a car, right, making a movement before the lights and then get a penalty. I think later it was clarified in I think it was Suzuka 2019 when Vettel had a jump start, I believe, and then Bottas overtook him. There's a differentiator, right? So you could have a little jump start, just go ahead and mash the throttle and start ahead of everyone. You get a penalty for sure. But then you have this weird category of jump start where you just make a pre-movement, you then brake, you come to a stop, and then you relaunch again. So it's like you have two starts, right? But I think there are different sensors to where like you're allowed to move within a certain, let's say, field. What is all of that about? I think that is super strange. Like, jump start should be a jump start, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, the penalties in general, it's been a thing. Like, they take so long to analyze everything because they don't want to make a hasty decision. But sometimes we've had to wait until after the race to find out the real results. And this, fortunately, they did, deal with it during the race. But I feel like it was a surprise to everyone that Norris didn't get any penalties because he, we clearly saw the car move, but apparently the sensors didn't really, didn't see any movements, or it was within an allowed margin. But did he stay within the grid box? I don't think so.
I read the report of the FIA, and apparently like they did not register a jump start. So like they have different, I think, like sensors and everything, but it determines whether or not there was a jump start. And I think like by regulation, they're not allowed to really like investigate or overrule that decision of the machine or whatever decides whether or not it was a jump start. So I think that brings a good question whether or not like F1 starts to rely too much on these sensors and everything. We have this with the track limits. This is a big topic from last year as well. Like the track limits are insane. Like obviously in Jeddah, a bit different. You have the walls.
Yeah.
But I still think that this jump start was super strange. You had George Russell reporting like straight away. I think even like when you looked at just the initial start, right? Like the whole grid view, you just saw that there was a movement, and that was quite significant. I don't think it was like a super little movement, like a few centimeters. I think he moved outside of his grid box, but I'm not entirely sure.
No, I agree. It's a good example of, the balance between data and human decisions, right? Because as Toto Wolff said in the new Drive to Survive season, it's a data-based sport, but ultimately people make the decisions. But here it looks like, they can't make the decision if the data doesn't align perfectly. And question is, what is the best way to deal with this? I mean, everybody clearly saw that, Lando Norris started before the lights went out. But, I mean, would it be fair to give him a penalty if he didn't get any significant advantage,
Yeah, I think rather than gaining an advantage, I think he might have made himself, like even worse off by jump starting. He lost time instead. I mean, he didn't lose positions, I believe.
Yeah, but no, he was definitely he started later, because he was trying to overcompensate, I guess, for jump starting. But it definitely, I mean, in the end, I feel like it was fair like this. Just because, as you said, he didn't gain the significant advantage. He almost lost out because of it, but it doesn't set a good precedent for future calls made by the stewards. If it's not good, if what we see doesn't align with what we see as the result of the decision, it's gonna be worse.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, it just needs, we're just looking for consistency, right? Like the same thing as like a few years back when Hamilton versus Leclerc happened in Monza. I think it was 2019. There was this weird confusion about like when you can push the driver off the track, how much you can push the driver off the track, and it was super inconsistent. Like that race, I think Leclerc got a black and white flag, and then there was races like Silverstone. I believe it was the same year or year after where Vettel battled Verstappen, and they pushed each other, over the limit, and one of them got a penalty. I mean, it was a mess. Like in terms of just finding out the consistency. I think that is what all the F1 fans are looking for, because everyone, I bet everyone, when they were looking at the jump start, they were like, "Oh, penalty."
Yeah,
easy.
No, definitely. All the commentators, I think all feeds had to agree. And no, but this definitely has been a topic in F1 for the longest time. The consistency of the stewards, the decision, the penalties, and I mean, after 2021 with Michael Massey, it's just. It remains a big topic, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, after Massey left Massey, to say the least, was not the Mr. Consistent himself, right?
Exactly.
Well, Abu Dhabi 2021, but
it's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, it is a whole different story, but I still believe that there's still room to find in terms of just finding the right balance between racing and, giving out these penalties. But I think just for the fans, mainly, we just need to make it super consistent, super clear that we know, this is a penalty, this is not a penalty. Can we count on that? Can we not? It's just, I think it would make for so much better.
Yeah.
So what did you think and make of the McLaren performance overall? We mentioned Norris having a jump start.
Yeah.
But we actually had Piastri finishing P4 ahead of Norris, which was pretty interesting. Best of the rest, except for Ferrari.
No, I mean, Piastri did a really good job. I mean, he was stuck behind Hamilton for like 20 laps, as he, joked after the race that he's an expert on Mercedes rear wings now. But he really struggled to get past on the final straight. Even with DRS, with the longer lasting tire, Hamilton was on the mediums for pretty long time. So it really goes to show that McLaren have, some issues that they need to resolve, but Mercedes are, pretty similar in that way, but they struggle in the high speed corners. And the data doesn't align with the wind tunnel data, which is a huge problem. What do you make of the Mercedes? I mean, looks like they're still struggling. 3 years on, the ground floor, the ground effect era, and Mercedes still struggling to find the pace.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the explanation for like McLaren struggling for top speed and Mercedes struggling for, let's say, high speed turns, I think, or the stability in the high speed turns, I've seen that McLaren had a pretty loaded wing. So for anyone wondering what a loaded rear wing means, it means just that it's a technically bigger surface area. You have a bigger wing, so it's going to push the car down a lot more, and it's going to cost you on the straight line because you have more drag. You're going to be slower on the on the final straight, for example. And Mercedes went the opposite route. They went for the lower downforce wing, so it should have given them less, downforce, so they would be slower in these higher speed turns. But in turn, they would have a better top speed, this is something they struggled with last year, right?
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not sure how it was for the race, but in FP3, Hamilton went for a little bit more loaded wing, as he felt a lot better balance, and Russell went for the lower downforce wing. But anyway, it was pretty significant difference when you just, you could have seen for so many laps that Piastri was just significantly struggling on the straights. Like, even with the DRS open, I think he was gaining like 6 kilometers an hour on Hamilton on the straight, which is quite crazy.
So it was just like regular slipstream. It really didn't seem like DRS at all. But ultimately, it worked out for Piastri at least.
Yeah.
He
went fourth on a really good race.
Fourth in standings as well right now, which is, second year in Formula 1.
And Norris is not a soft benchmark, it's a pretty good benchmark.
Some people have been saying that Piastri is better than Norris. Last year as a rookie, he got the sprint win, which must have stung for Norris. It wasn't a race win, but
100%. I think the future is bright in terms of these young, drivers. I think we saw with Ollie Behrman the same thing.
And Liam Lawson last year was the same thing, right? Like Ricciardo broke his wrist and he had to jump in the car at the last notice. But he did really well as well for the few races that he was in F1. He outqualified Verstappen, remember, knocking him out of Q3.
True. Liam Lawson, he beat Yuki Tsunoda in his first ever qualifying without any significant preparation, which cannot be said about Daniel Ricciardo right now, because he seems to be struggling quite a bit with that RB or V-carb or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. No, apparently they had some issues as well, but Ricciardo spun in the last few laps. And the drama from Bahrain as well with, the team orders. It doesn't seem like a very easy situation to be in for V-carb right now. People have been saying that it's the fight for the Red Bull seat, but Perez is doing really well right now, doing his job and everything he needs to. So I don't know. I don't think that Ricciardo is, as of right now, is in a good position to impress the Red Bull bosses.
Of course, it's early on to say in the season, right? It's just been race 2, and if we were to judge only by 2 races, we would have Piastri ahead of Norris.
No, definitely.
We would have Russell ahead of Hamilton. So, it would have been a crazy thing to say, but I believe Ricciardo is going to bounce back, but it's still crazy to see him struggle so much, even after he has had a proper preseason test, which he didn't have last year. And he still shows signs of where he's got it. But I spinning in, what was it, last lap? He spun on the last lap and it was the first sector, right? In low speed corners. He just lost it and he spun because he was behind Tsunoda and was it Joe? Joe was too far back, wasn't he?
No, yeah, they had problems with their pit stops. We'll get to that as well, but
again. Crazy. Yeah, no, Sargent.
Sargent.
And Ocon.
But Tsunoda had a decent race apart from that, and but he was stuck in the train behind K-Mag for a very long time. What about Haas?
K-Mag.
Haas had an amazing weekend, considering they were being forecast as the blast of the last, the solid 10th team without question, and now they have a championship point.
Yeah, Magnussen did a stellar job. He did the dirty work of, what probably Bottas would have been used to, or Perez. But it's surprising to see, after so many years, from when was it, 2017, when they had a little incident of their own.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see them cooperate so well, but yeah, I think K-Mag, when I was looking at the data, he was pushing back. He was falling back in the first sector only for compared to Verstappen though, but he was falling back about 2 seconds a lap in the first sector alone, which is crazy. He just, he completely held up these people for laps and laps, so it cost them so many seconds. It was crazy. They did a great job.
Some people call it cheating. They say that he cut the corner, gained the penalties and then held everyone up. But I feel like from their side, it was just, it was just a good strategy. After he already had the penalties, what else could he have done?
Nothing. It's a team sport in the end, and they decided to sacrifice K-Mag this time.
Yeah.
But, no surprise. I think when you look back to Bahrain, in terms of the Haas car, I believe that in Bahrain, I think that Hülkenberg was like overall, when you just disregard his crash and his little, nose being stuck in the turn one.
Yeah.
After he went out from the pits, like from there onwards, he had a slightly faster lap times consistently than Fernando Alonso.
Really?
On the Aston Martin.
I didn't even know that.
So it seems like Haas has fixed their, degradation problem as well, like to an extent. So it seems like they still kept their qualifying speed, because we saw Hülkenberg in Q3 in Bahrain. I'm not sure if he qualified in Q3 in Saudi this race.
No,
but I'm pretty
sure
he was. But I'm pretty sure he was close.
Yeah, no, he had to have been.
So seems like the pace is there. Yeah. But wow, it was a mega job from Hülkenberg as well.
No, he was driving really well. He overtook Behrman back after he overtook him the first time. He was driving really cleanly, and Haas is doing well now after Gunther Steiner left. One wonders, were they struggling because of him? Probably not. I mean, to some extent, I guess, but the car overall seems better. But I mean, the atmosphere seems a little better in the team as well. I don't know. I don't know what to think about Gunther as a team principal. He's certainly entertaining, as a Netflix character in Drive to Survive, but
yeah, we don't know how it is in reality, right? Like in terms of his management skills and everything. Well, he's a brand for sure. He's one happy guy when when things go right, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that like different, screw ups from the team, it must have not been easy for these people to just, get kind of, the word from Steiner.
Yeah.
But it seems like they're starting to find their path. But in the end, 2018, they were in a much better place than now. So 2018, 2019, it was still a better place than now. And then they were consistently finishing like the last or one of the last. With Schumacher, Mazepin. So I think they still have a lot to prove, but they're on the right path.
Yeah.
Unlike someone else.
Who
is Alpine?
That's Alpine. What happened? I mean, last year they were in the middle of nowhere, the no man's land of P6 and constructors, right? But this year they're actually dead last. Like, Gasly retired on the formation lap, right? I mean, on the first lap with some mechanical issues.
I think it was the formation lap. It was the formation lap, actually. He had the issues on the formation lap, and then he ended the race.
I think he did start,
right?
Yeah,
he did, but he had these issues already in the formation lap. So it was it's not been good for Alpine. I think their technical director left. They resigned. All their,
head of
bigger people,
aerodynamics as well.
Yeah, so it's like, despite when looking at Drive to Survive, looking at how these celebrities invested, Anthony Joshua was in Saudi. I think they need to invest these money into some better facilities, better people. I mean, they need to start doing this Lawrence Stroll technique, when they're just hiring from Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes. It's not been great. It's been a terrible start for them.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to go in the path where it's going to get solved soon. So I don't know what they're going to do, honestly.
The one positive thing that might come out of this is Ocon and Gasly kind of coming together, because they're not actually fighting for anything, so maybe they'll become friends again, because they have nothing to...
They will both want to leave.
They will both want to leave. I mean, going from
a
solid team that scores points on occasion, and getting a podium in Monaco last year to the slowest car on the grid, that's tough.
Yep, and 0 points.
Okay, let's go to the best radio of the weekend. Drumroll, please.
Hit the wall.
Okay, can you bring it back, Lance?
No, I'm in the wall.
No, copy that.
And it is the radio from Lance Stroll when he crashed out of the Jeddah Grand Prix. Well, it was a crazy radio because it was quite funny. You just saw the replay. I think I'm not sure who it was, but the intent and the chances of this happening was quite funny. But they were trying to record someone behind Stroll, right? They were just trying to see where they are, and suddenly you just see the whole lock up and just going into the wall, and we're like, what's going on? Like brake failure? And then you just saw the onboard.
Yeah, clip the wall.
You saw Stroll, clipping the wall, flying into the barrier. And then you had his engineer saying, well, can you bring it home?
Yeah.
Well, no, he can't.
No, he can't.
He's in the wall.
He's in the wall.
And I'm quite surprised because I thought that F1 teams, they can see their drivers on board or that they are watching it. Like
speed zero. Like, you would think that is shown to them in real time or with a very small delay at least. But I guess maybe they were hopeful, that he would reverse out of it.
But this was sorry to the Ferrari fans, but this was a bit of a Ferrari moment in terms of how it played out.
Sadly, I have to agree, but Lance Stroll was not having a good weekend. I mean, after a race, he said that he was struggling on the tires, and then he just clipped the wall. But last week, he was actually doing very good. Like he finished P10 after being hit, on the opening lap, and going from P19 to P10 in Bahrain was actually, very.
It showed us good promise. We were thinking, okay, well, can Lance Stroll bounce back after, the last year he broke his wrists. Maybe he suffered from it the whole entire year. He needed some good recovery. But last race was incredible for him. But this race he was on the back foot. Like compared to Alonso, we were all looking at Alonso as one of the potential upsetters for the pole position. He was not that far off considering, the Red Bull's dominance.
Yeah.
He was having quite an under the radar weekend. Like he was, I think, was P5 in the end in the race.
P5.
Yeah, and he was not really attacked by anyone from behind. He was not really attacking anyone in the front as well, but he had a pretty solid weekend unless you count in where they started last year. But I think it's a good step in the right direction for Aston Martin.
No, I mean,
we'll see in Australia.
After last year, where they started off really strong, but then their upgrade just took them down the order, and when they took them away and went with the original car, they went back again. But it was, if they managed to develop the car this year, they might, be. I mean, the pecking order is still not very clear between Mercedes, McLaren, and Aston Martin.
Yeah, I think like from second to fifth, like if you make let's say a significant upgrade, a few tenths, and suddenly you're leading the pack. You go from the fifth from the pack, you just come leading. So it's super tight. Like it's crazy. I don't think Formula One has ever been so tight in terms of the pecking orders and, the real gaps. Like, of course, funnily enough, we see a dominance unlike ever, but I still think like when you look at the qualifying from Bahrain, right? The Q1, I think from P1 to P20, there was only like 1 second of a gap, which is crazy.
No, last year it was really good with this, second to fifth, with a lot of teams being on the podium and a lot of fighting in that space. But this year it seems maybe a little more clear, but it's all up to the upgrades, and how the teams develop the car. But I think that Aston Martin has a problem, or not a problem, but Lance Stroll really has to perform to help the team. Last year at the start of the season when the car was really strong again, he didn't really perform, and then they were caught by McLaren at the end very easily. And really shows the difference that a driver can make. Because McLaren
and Alonso is the best example.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see in Australia, because last year it was not that amazing of a track for Aston Martin. Like, despite them being in the fight for the podium, give or take, it still was one of the weak ones because it's front limited. It means that you just need the front of the car to be super strong. That's where I expect Mercedes to be a little bit closer rather than last race, but we'll see. I'm pretty excited for Australia.
Yeah.
There's going to be many different news, Verstappen, Mercedes, Red Bull.
That is a big
drama.
topic right now, and there have been articles saying that Christian Horner is going to get sacked before the Australian Grand Prix.
Then there was news that it's false. It's all kicking off. The silly season is kicking off.
The silly season kicked off
a
month before the season, which is crazy, this year.
Yeah.
In terms of the drama.
Good point.
It's very unprecedented.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens in Red Bull, because as some people have said, with a team as dominant as this one, the only way for the dominance to end is with the team imploding, and destroying itself, which might very well be happening. So we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see in Australia. And if you guys want to see us talk about all this, what we mentioned, or anything else for that matter, leave us a comment down below. Subscribe. It will make us super happy. And we will see you back in Australia.
Yeah. See you next time.
See ya.